So typically, ventriloquism horror stories are either a hit or a miss for me. You can either give me that wow factor that really resonates, makes you stand out, and makes it really a fun or well written piece to me, or you can go down the super formulaic route, which ends up being either decent, mid, bad, or trash a lot of the time to me. I'm just that way. I've dealt with so many ventriloquism stories that you need some type of wow factor, something unique, something well done that it's going to appeal to me. And luckily, the episode that I'm going to be talking about today from an anthology horror show that a lot of you may know, this one managed to have two wow factors in it. First of all, one of my favorite comedians of all time, a hero that I look up to, a guy that I think everybody needs to recognize even more, especially now that he's unfortunately passed away, rest in peace, is the main ventriloquist in this story, and he does a fantastic job. And second, there's a twist in this story involving the ventriloquist dummy that, listen, man, it is one of the most disturbing, horrifying, yet simultaneously fun twists that I've seen involving a story of this degree. So without further ado, let's talk about the popular adult horror anthology show, the one that is completely unrated, completely wild, and the one that I'm currently watching and enjoying going through right now, which is Tales from the Crypt. That's right, people. We're talking about Tales from the Crypt, and specifically in this case, I'm going to be talking about an episode that impressed me. One that I found a good time, one that I found pretty fun, horrifying, dark comedy, very memorable, very iconic for a lot of reasons, and that is Season 2, Episode 10, which is The Ventriloquist Dummy. This episode to me is a fun one. It's got some really disturbing moments in it. It's got some horrifying moments. It's got some good schlock and gore in there. It has some funny comedy moments, genuinely funny moments in the beginning, especially with the lead comedian that's the main star of this one. And also some dark comedy, some really disturbing yet dark comedic stuff towards the end of it. So overall, this is a really fun package of an episode. And if you like that type of living dummy trope kind of stories, that type of genre, I think you're going to like this one for how kind of stand out it is. So, Season 2, Episode 10, The Ventriloquist Dummy. What is it about? Well, first of all, you get introduced to the main ventriloquist in this episode, a guy who's super popular, a guy who's doing very well in the canon of the episode. But this guy, this stand-up comedian, is also extremely well revered in the comedy industry and in comedic history. And it is none other than one of my heroes, one of my personal heroes, a guy that I find super charming, genuinely funny, timeless, classic act, and genuinely a really nice and kindred soul from what I've seen of him. And that is none other than the legendary Don Rickles. Don Rickles is one of my all-time favorite comedians. He's a genuine inspiration to me. He's a hero. This guy was doing comedy back when the old days when he had mobsters and he performed at the Copacabana. This guy is an OG. And unfortunately, he passed away. R.I.P. to Don Rickles. Rest in peace. Thank you for everything you brought. I love Don Rickles. One of my favorite comedians, one of my favorite people. And he's genuinely a national treasure that we lost. So seeing him in this episode as the lead role, I freaked out. I was like, yo, they got Don Rickles to play the head ventriloquist in this episode. And he does what he does. He does what he does. He does stand-up comedy acts in the beginning. He does some performances with this pretty normal looking ventriloquist dummy. They have some back and forth. It is pretty creepy though. It's got some like Mary Ellen type of doll eyes, but it does kind of look like a typical ventriloquist dummy. He has some back and forth banter. You see this crowd laughing, and there's specific focus on this main character, kid in the crowd. A young guy, a guy with glasses, and you can tell he's very much interested in ventriloquism. And it comes to find out that he plays an important role later in the story. Because after the act is done, Don Rickles is done with his act. He absolutely killed it, did a great job at this nightclub. He heads out, goes backstage. You get introduced to his kind of lifestyle, dealing with ladies, getting the fame, the fortune. And you get some, I guess, strange interactions between him and the dummy that you kind of suspect maybe there might be something a little bit more to this than what's initially going on. However, you then cut to the home situation of that kid that was focused on in the nightclub crowd. And you see his name is Billy Goldman. And Billy Goldman is this young kid. His mother is very strict. You know, he tries to get an autograph from Don Rickles backstage. Don Rickles gives it to him, but his mother very much is kind of basically shitting on his dreams, basically saying, you know, you're not going to be a ventriloquist. You're going to be a doctor making a lot of money. That's your goal. That's your future. He gets home, you know, he sees that his mom is very strict. But, you know, he's very optimistic. He takes Don Rickles' signature to his heart. He loves Don Rickles. He loves ventriloquism. And he goes to bed that night. And then you cut to the future where you now see a grown-up Billy Goldman. He's like in his 30s or 40s. And he's driving to this, I guess, cabin out in the woods. And this cabin out in the woods, you come to find out, actually belongs to Don Rickles. And Don Rickles ended up actually retiring due to this accident that happened. There was this big fire. Apparently some woman had died in this fire, and Don Rickles, trying to get her out, or whatever his situation was backstage that night, he ended up getting his hand severely burned, and he had to retire. He had to retire his dummy. He had to retire his act, and he was forced into a very difficult situation. So now he's kind of like a hermit. He's in retirement, and Billy Goldman goes to meet his hero. He knocks on the door. He meets Don Rickles face to face. They kind of rekindle. Don Rickles is very standoffish. He plays a lot of the time in a lot of, if you'll notice in a lot of movies or in a lot of different acts, he plays that grumpy old man he's got those like quick remarks, very witty. He does the same thing here. He's got quick remarks. He's witty, angry old man. I like the way he plays it. Very charming, very funny. And he basically just tells, you know, like, what the hell do you want, kid? Like, I'm retired. My act is done. I don't know what you could possibly want from me. And Billy Goldman is trying to convey, you know, you are my #1 idol. I love you. You're the guy that inspired me to become a ventriloquist. I gave up a lot of stuff in my future. And Billy Goldman explains that he's actually going to be performing at the same nightclub that Don Rickles had. And he asks Don Rickles for pointers. He asks him to take a look at his act, come during that night, and see if he can give some pointers, see how he performs. And Don Rickles is very hesitant, you know, being very standoffish. You can see Billy Goldman, he's got that, even though he's 30 years old, he's got that still childlike persona to him. And he's hurt and he wants to walk away with his spirits down. But Don Rickles decides, you know what, I'll attend your show. I'll see what's going on. And then the night of the show happens and Billy Goldman bombs. He does terrible. His act is falling apart. He gets stage fright. Everyone's booing him. Don Rickles is watching it and he feels really bad for the kid because he sees that the kid is genuinely trying, but he's failing. And he tells him straight up, you know, this is not a business meant for you. Billy Goldman, down on his luck, very upset. And as the story progresses, Billy Goldman sees something very odd. And that is that he noticed that there was a woman with Don Rickles at the bar. And that woman actually ended up getting killed, murdered out by the parking lot. And she's left in the car. I think her throat or body is slashed up. And he very much realizes something that other people don't, because all the other bystanders and witnesses are wondering how she got murdered. But he's the only guy who saw Don Rickles with this woman at the bar earlier before he left with his last conversation with them. So now he goes back to the cabin to confront Don Rickles. And you end up getting this big revelation, which revolves around, let's just say, Don Rickles' situation maybe involving potential murders, maybe involving the fire accident that happened a while ago that caused his retirement, and it may or may not tie to his career in ventriloquism. There is a fucked up secret that is revealed in the climax of this episode, and it is one of the most horrifying practical effect visuals that I have seen in an anthology show. It is genuinely disgusting and weird and freaky, but it's fun. It's done in a fun way, and I genuinely love the fact that they went down a completely different direction. This is not your typical Night of the Living Dummy type of story, right? It's a little bit like that, but there's a very, very disturbing, gross, nasty, but weird in a good way type of twist that I can't reveal what it is because it's very easy to spoil this episode. But once you see it, you're gonna be like, what the fuck is this shit? And then as you go on, as the episode continues and you see some action, you get some gore, you get some violent schlock going on, and you get some dark comedy moments, you continue watching and you're like, what the fuck is this shit? You start getting excited. You start enjoying it. So I have to say, for this episode, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. This episode is great. Don Rickles, fantastic guest appearance. I love seeing him. Bias aside, he's funny. He does a good job. He's a good act. Billy Goldman, pretty sympathetic main character. I enjoy Billy Goldman's character. He has a lot of funny lines, surprisingly, in the climax, and that's actually a nice play on the fact that he's a kid who genuinely has talent in performing, but he gets very nervous on stage. But then when you see him behind the scenes in the cabin and he encounters this very weird situation that he has to deal with, he's funny. He's got some genuinely funny, over-the-top, quotable, iconic lines. I think he says something like, he deals with killing a specific something that you'll see in the episode, and he goes like, come over here, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you, you inbred little Cabbage Patch Kid. I was laughing my ass off when he said that, inbred Cabbage Patch Kid. And when you see what that is in relation to, you're like, oh yeah, this guy's funny. He's got genuinely funny lines. They're genuinely good. And just overall, the story was well done. I like the setting of performances, entertainment. Of course, I'm the type of guy, I don't like public speaking, but I've always had my strengths in public speaking, entertaining, this kind of stuff. So seeing, a guy deal with stage fright, seeing this veteran Don Rickles in real life and in this episode kind of merge two generations together with the main character and mentor figure, I think that's really well done. And I think this story is a timeless classic. I can see the story standing the test of time. I think it's really, really fun, and I would suggest you go watch it. If you're a fan of ventriloquist horror stories, I think this one is unique enough that it'll stand out to you. If you like gore, if you like schlock, if you like dark comedy, the climax of this episode has that. If you like Don Rickles, you love famous guest appearances, stand-up comedians, this is the episode for you. And yeah, the only real, downside to the story is the very twist ending is a little bit weird. It's unexplained. It kind of lacks some moral progression for a certain character, but also just the way it's handled at the end is quite weird. Handled, by the way, no pun intended. Is quite strange. So that I took 0.2 off for that. But regardless, this episode gets a 9 out of 10. This is an A. This is a good episode, a great episode, in fact. And I would definitely recommend you guys watch it. This is a standout one in Tales from the Crypt from what I've seen so far, which is like 20 or so episodes, season 1, season 2. That's all I have for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you like this video, feel free to hit that subscribe button down below. Red like my hat, red like my shirt. It's free. I would love to get to 250 subscribers soon. We're actually 25 away. You guys are great. So let's try to hit that 250 subscriber milestone. Also hit that like button down below. Helps out my video go into the algorithm. And of course, by helping the video, subscribe and liking. That way more people can see it. And that way I can get some more interaction with what type of content you guys want to see. I have another Tales from the Crypt episode review, another one of the best episodes I've seen that I recorded earlier this week, so go check that out. And I have other content on here. I have movie reviews, I have episode reviews, I have horror book reviews for kids, young adult, and adult horror. I'm the Horror Tavern. I'm the one-stop pub basically for all things horror. So I hope you guys enjoy this channel. I hope you guys like my videos. And if you're new here, thank you for joining. I hope you tune in for more. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much. I always appreciate you. And yeah, that's all I have for today. I hope you guys enjoyed, and see you until the next time. Deuces. Oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to mention, but the chair, we're good, y'all. It's fixed. Situation is good. The autopsy of Chair Doe is all right. You know what? Annie Wilkes bitch ass spirit, ice cream eating fat ass, is not gonna break my chair with her goddamn axe. All right, we survived this one. Now if Don Rickles comes back, roast the shit out of my chair, and it ends up committing seppuku, at that point I might just have to stand during my reviews. I can't deal with all this paranormal activity.